When I was a kid, I used to visit my grandparents at their farm in northern Kentucky. The farmhouse sat on top of a hill, and if you went out back, you could see about an acre's worth of planted vegetables. And beyond that was the chicken coop, and to the right was the barn. And then there were trees going all the way down the hill to a creek. And if you went out on the front porch of the house, you'd look out over the lawn, and then the dirt road, and then beyond the dirt road, a fenced-in meadow, and then more trees on down to a creek. I used to love going to my grandparents' farm, having fresh eggs, having vegetables that had just been picked. It's nothing like sweet corn that you start the water boiling before you even pick the corn. You shuck it and throw it in that boiling water, and it tastes so sweet. I watched them as they fed the garbage and the slop to the chickens, let the cows wander wherever they want. It seemed kind of quaint to me when I was a kid, having lived in the suburbs. I thought, it's just kind of quaint. Now I wish I could live there. Well, when I was growing up, every summer, my grandpa would sit me down on the front porch and he would tell me stories. He was a great storyteller. I wouldn't call him a liar, but he never let the facts get in the way of the truth. And a story he used to tell me over and over again had to do with this little birch tree that was right in front of the front porch. You see, it came up about 2 feet out of the ground and then split. It was as if it was two totally different and separate trees on either side. My grandpa sat me down one summer night on the front porch, and he pointed to that tree. He says, "You know, Stevie, I once saw something I never thought would ever happen. There was this mama and papa bird that had this nest up one side of that tree over there. And on the other side of the tree, there was this squirrel. And this squirrel kept running down the one side of the tree and up the other toward the nest and just bothering the heck out of that mama and papa bird because they had a couple little babies up in there in that nest. They didn't want that squirrel coming and messing with them. So they would fly around and flutter and squawk, and they would come dive bomb that squirrel, and that squirrel would run away and go back up the other branch." Well, this happened about 4 or 5 times in one evening when I was sitting out here right on this porch. And about the 5th time that squirrel came running down that one side, come running up that other side and bothering that mama and papa bird. Well, that mama and papa bird, they did more than just fly around and squawk at that squirrel. They chased him out of the tree and into the lawn. And as he scampered down the lawn, those birds, they swooped down in on that squirrel and they picked him up. They took him across the road and they dropped him in that meadow. I thought that was the greatest story I ever heard when I was 8 or 9 years old. By the time I got about 13 and had heard that story for 4 or 5 summers in a row, I looked at my grandfather and said, "Grandpa, is that story true?" And he laughed. He said, "Oh, Stevie, there ain't that much truth in the world. But the truths I know come through in the stories we tell one another." I had no idea what that meant. Absolutely none. Until years later, when I had a son, and we came to visit his great-grandpa. And one summer evening, we were sitting on that front porch, and my grandpa told that story. The birch tree was a lot bigger, so the amount of running that squirrel did was a lot more. The birds squawked not 4 or 5 times, but 8 or 10. And the distance they carried that squirrel was far beyond just the front lawn, the road, and the meadow. It got bigger and bigger with time. But as I heard that story about that mama and papa bird getting that squirrel away from their nest and carrying it away, as I listened to my son hear that story as a young man, it suddenly dawned on me that I knew what the story was about. It was about that this porch where I sat, was the place where, like that mama and papa bird, we would be protected. We would be cared for at whatever cost.